The night was quiet when John Miller's ambulance radio crackled to life. He was just finishing his shift at the small-town hospital when a bright flash lit up the dark sky. Something strange was falling from above, leaving a trail of blue fire behind it. John looked at his watch. 11:45 p.m. He should have been heading home, but something about that light made him turn his truck toward the woods instead. The paramedic in him couldn't ignore what might be a crash site. Someone could need help. As he drove down the dark forest road, his headlights caught something shiny between the trees. It wasn't a plane crash like he expected. The object was round, about the size of a small car, with smooth silver metal that didn't look like anything made on Earth. "Hello," John called out, grabbing his medical bag from his truck. "Is anyone hurt?" The night was silent except for a soft humming sound coming from the strange craft. As John got closer, he saw that part of the metal shell was cracked open. Inside, he found something that made him stop breathing for a moment. A woman lay there, but she wasn't human. Her skin was a pale blue color that seemed to glow softly in the dark. Her hair looked like strands of starlight, and her face was beautiful but clearly alien. She was hurt badly, purple blood flowing from a deep cut in her side. The alien woman's eyes opened slowly, revealing silver irises that looked straight into John's soul. She tried to speak, but only a weak sound came out. John could see she was dying. His hands moved quickly, checking her pulse. It was there, but getting weaker every second. The purple blood was still flowing, and none of his normal medical supplies seemed right for an alien body. What could human medicine do for someone not from Earth? Then John noticed something strange. Where her purple blood had dripped onto his hand, it didn't feel cold like normal blood would. Instead, it tingled, almost like it was trying to connect with his own blood. That's when John had a crazy idea. He was type O negative, the universal donor for humans. Could his blood possibly help her? It seemed impossible, but as he watched her getting weaker, he knew he had to try something. With shaking hands, John pulled out his emergency transfusion kit. "I don't know if you can understand me," he said to the alien woman, "but I'm going to try to help you. Please don't die." He set up the transfusion line and carefully inserted one end into his arm. The alien woman watched him with those silver eyes, seeming to understand. When he moved to put the other needle into her arm, she didn't pull away. As his red blood began flowing through the tube toward her blue skin, John prayed he wasn't making a huge mistake. For a few seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the alien woman's body jerked, and her silver eyes went wide. The place where his blood entered her arm began to glow with a soft blue light. The light spread through her veins, creating beautiful patterns under her skin. Her purple blood seemed to be changing, mixing with his red blood to create something entirely new. John felt dizzy, but he couldn't stop now. The alien woman's breathing was getting stronger. The wound in her side was actually starting to heal, closing up right before his eyes. Whatever was happening, it seemed to be working. Just then, John heard something that made his heart stop. The sound of helicopters in the distance, getting closer. Someone else had seen the crash and was coming. He looked down at the alien woman, whose silver eyes now showed fear. She understood the danger too. "Don't worry," John said, even as his vision started to blur from blood loss. "I won't let them hurt you." The helicopters were getting louder. John knew he had only minutes to decide what to do next. But looking at the strange, beautiful being whose life was now linked to his through their shared blood, he already knew he would do whatever it took to protect her. The night that had started so normally was about to change John's life forever. And somewhere above them, more lights were appearing in the dark sky. As the helicopter sounds grew closer, John quickly disconnected the transfusion line. His world spun from blood loss, but he couldn't rest yet. The alien woman was already sitting up, her silver eyes glowing brighter than before. "My name, Zora," she said suddenly, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a soft breeze. She spoke English, but with a musical quality that no human voice could make. "You Saved me. John stared in amazement. You can speak our language. Your blood. Zara touched the place where his blood had entered her arm. It carries memories, knowledge. I now know what you know. She stumbled as she tried to stand, and John caught her. Her skin felt like silk but was cool to the touch. The helicopters were almost overhead now. We need to get out of here, John said, looking at his truck. But Zara shook her head. First, you must understand. She pressed her hand against his forehead. Suddenly, John's mind filled with images of a dying world, a beautiful blue planet where Zara's people lived. He saw massive ships, carrying the last survivors of their race across the stars. Our blood carries our life force, Zara explained as John saw more visions. Our species is dying because our blood is getting weaker with each generation. But your blood, she looked at him with wonder. It's stronger than anything we've ever seen. It didn't just heal me. It made me stronger. A spotlight from above cut through the trees. John heard voices and dogs barking in the distance, but he couldn't move, transfixed by what Zara was showing him. He saw her mission. She was a scientist, sent to find new genetic material that might save her people. The crash wasn't supposed to happen. Now everything had changed. Your blood has changed me, Zara said, her voice urgent. The mixing of our blood created something new, something that could save both our worlds. She touched her chest, where a soft blue light pulsed. I can feel it growing stronger inside me. Suddenly, the trees lit up with multiple spotlights. Men in black uniforms were approaching through the woods, their weapons raised. Stop right there, a voice commanded through a megaphone. This is a government quarantine zone. Do not attempt to move. But Zara had one more surprise. She raised her hand, and the blue light under her skin grew blindingly bright. John felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body. What's happening? He gasped. The connection goes both ways, Zara said, smiling. My blood is now in you too. Let me show you what that means. The armed men were almost upon them when Zara grabbed John's hand. The blue light enveloped them both, and John felt his feet leave the ground. He watched in astonishment as they began to float, rising above the reaching hands of the government agents. Impossible, John whispered. No, Zora replied, her silver eyes sparkling. This is just the beginning. Your blood gave me life, John Miller. Now I give you the stars. They hovered there, surrounded by blue light, as chaos erupted below. The agents were shouting, helicopters circling, but they couldn't reach them. John looked at Zora and saw not just an alien, but his future. Then Zora's expression changed to worry. Others of my kind will come looking for me soon. They'll want to know why my distress signal stopped. She looked at him seriously. You must decide quickly, John. Help me hide, or let me go. But know this, nothing will ever be the same. The moment our blood mixed, we became part of something bigger than both our worlds. Below them, the agents were bringing in bigger weapons. Above, the stars seemed to shimmer with new meaning, and in John's veins, he could feel something awakening, a power he never knew humans could possess. The night was far from over. John and Zara floated down in the dark forest miles away from the crash site. The blue glow around them faded, but John could still feel something strange flowing through his veins, a tingling power that made him feel more alive than ever before. We need to keep moving, Zara said, her silver eyes scanning the night sky. They can track my energy signature. She stumbled, still weak from the crash, and John caught her. Where their skin touched, small patterns of blue light danced between them. My cabin, John said. It's deep in the woods off the grid. We can hide there until you're stronger. As they walked through the dark forest, Zara explained more about her people. We are the luminary, she said. Our bodies evolved to absorb and channel the energy of stars. But our sun died centuries ago, and with it, our power began to fade. Suddenly, she stopped walking. Her silver eyes went wide. "John, your blood. It's changing faster than I expected." She touched his face, and he saw himself through her eyes. Faint blue lines were appearing under his skin, just like hers. They reached his cabin just as dawn was breaking. Inside, Zora's condition worsened. She curled up in pain as her body continued to change. "The mixing of our blood," she gasped. "It's rewriting both our genetic codes, creating something new, something that's never existed before." Her skin rippled with waves of blue light. John felt it too, memories that weren't his own flowing through his mind. He saw Zora's childhood on a world with 3 moons. He felt her people's desperate journey through space, searching for a way to save themselves. Then something even stranger happened. As Zora's pain peaked, the plants around the cabin began to glow. Flowers bloomed instantly. Grass grew feet taller in seconds. Life itself seemed to be responding to their combined energy. "This is impossible," Zora whispered in awe. "Your human blood, it doesn't just carry life force. It can create it. My people lost that ability eons ago." A deep humming sound filled the air. Through the cabin window, they saw 3 glowing orbs descending from the sky. More luminary ships. "They're here," Zora said, her voice mixing fear and hope. "My people sensed the new energy we created. They'll either see it as salvation or an abomination." The ships landed in a triangle around the cabin. John's newly enhanced senses could feel the power radiating from them, but he also felt something else. Zora's fear wasn't just for herself. "There's something you haven't told me," he said, looking at her glowing form. Zora placed her hand over her chest, where the blue light pulsed strongest. "When your blood mixed with mine, it didn't just heal me. It created a seed, the first new luminary life force in 1,000 years. I'm carrying the future of both our species." The cabin door burst open in a flash of light. 3 tall figures entered, their bodies pure energy contained in vaguely humanoid shapes. They spoke in voices that made the air vibrate. "Sister Zora," the tallest one said, "you have violated our most sacred law. Mixing our blood with lesser species is forbidden." But as they moved closer, their light dimmed in surprise. They could see how Zora and John's energies were intertwined, creating patterns of power they'd never seen before. "Impossible," one whispered. "Their combined energy, it's stronger than even the ancient ones." John stood in front of Zora protectively. Where his feet touched the floor, small plants began growing through the wooden boards. "She's not your experiment," he said. "And neither am I." The lead luminary raised a hand crackling with energy. "This abomination cannot be allowed to continue." But before anyone could move, Zora cried out. The seed of energy inside her pulsed, sending out a wave of blue light that made the entire cabin glow. Where the light touched, life exploded. Vines broke through walls, flowers bloomed in impossible colors, and for a moment, everyone felt the power of pure creation. The luminary stepped back in shock. They had not seen such power since their world was young. "The question," Zora said, standing tall despite her pain, "is not whether this should be allowed to continue. The question is, can you afford to stop it?" Above them, the night sky filled with more lights. The chase was far from over. The luminary ships hovered above John's cabin, their light turning the night into day. Inside, time seemed to stand still as the 3 luminary elders faced John and Zora. But something was changing in the air between them. The plants that had burst through the cabin floor were still growing, but now they were transforming into something never seen on Earth. Crystal-like flowers bloomed with petals that hummed with energy, their colors shifting between blue and silver, the perfect blend of human and luminary life. "Look," Zora said, touching one of the crystal flowers. As her fingers made contact, the flower projected a hologram of DNA strands, human and luminary genetic code weaving together in beautiful patterns. The tallest elder moved closer, their energy form flickering with what seemed like emotion. "In all our centuries of searching across the stars, we never imagined." They touched the crystal flower, and their pure energy form suddenly solidified partly into flesh, just for a moment. Their blood carries the essence of their world's core, the second elder said, their voice filled with wonder. Earth itself is alive in a way our world never was. That's why their blood can create new life. John felt a sudden rush of memory, but not his own. Through his connection with Zora, he saw the luminary homeworld, a dying planet orbiting a fading star. Their people had evolved to become pure energy, but in doing so, they'd lost their connection to physical life itself. There's more, Zora said. She took John's hand, and together they showed the elders what was growing inside her, not just a child, but a bridge between species. The seed of energy was creating a new form of life that could exist in both physical and energy states at will. But suddenly, alarms blared from the ships above. Earth's military forces had arrived. Jets, helicopters, and something larger moving through the clouds. They brought their atomic weapons. The third elder warned, "If those strike us while we're channeling our energy." John felt Zora's fear spike through their connection. A nuclear blast combined with luminary energy would create a chain reaction that could tear reality itself. Then John noticed something strange. Where he and Zora stood together, the wooden floor had transformed into a mirror-like surface that seemed to reflect not light, but time itself. In it, he could see possible futures branching out like rivers. "Your world or mine," Zora said softly. "We must choose now. If we stay, your governments will never stop hunting us. If we go," she placed his hand over the growing seed of energy inside her, "we'll never be able to return to Earth." The military forces were closing in. The luminary elders' forms flickered anxiously, but John was watching the time mirror at their feet, seeing something no one else had noticed yet. "Look," he said, pointing to the reflecting surface. "There's a third choice." In the mirror, they saw a new path, a future where the crystal flowers were growing not just in the cabin, but across both worlds. The plants were acting as bridges, allowing human and luminary energy to flow between planets, healing both. The seed inside you, John realized, it's not just a child. It's a key to something bigger. Zora's eyes widened with understanding. A gateway between worlds. The military jets were almost upon them. The luminary ship's defenses were powering up. They had seconds to decide. John looked at the crystal flowers, then at Zora, then at the approaching human forces that had once been his people. The power in his veins sang with new purpose. "Sometimes the hardest choice," he said, taking Zora's hand, "is choosing not to choose at all." The crystal flowers suddenly burst with light, spreading in a wave across the forest floor. Above them, the military planes hit an invisible barrier of pure life energy. Below, roots of light began burrowing deep into Earth's core. The luminary elders watched in astonishment as John and Zora's combined power did something unprecedented. It began building a bridge not just between worlds, but between ways of being. But the night's biggest surprise was still to come. As the gateway between worlds began to form, something stirred deep in space, ancient forces awakening to the birth of something new in the universe. 1 year had passed since that night in the forest. John sat in his rebuilt cabin, surrounded by the crystal garden that now served as Earth's first biological stardate. The flowers hummed with cosmic energy, their petals reflecting distant stars no human telescope had ever seen. His own body had continued to change. Blue luminescent patterns now flowed beneath his skin like living tattoos, mapping the cosmic energy that coursed through his transformed blood. He could feel Earth's heartbeat now, its deep connection to all living things. The military had eventually backed down, not by choice, but because the crystal flowers had spread across every continent. Wherever they grew, miraculous things happened. Deserts bloomed, sick people healed, and children were born with faint silver in their eyes. Then one morning, everything changed again. John felt it first through his connection to the crystal garden. A massive surge of energy approaching Earth. The flowers all turned to face the sky at once, their petals chiming a melody he hadn't heard since that first night with Zora. The air itself seemed to bend as something massive emerged from hyperspace. It wasn't just a ship, it was an entire living city, its structures grown from the same crystal technology that had spread across Earth. At its heart, John sensed a familiar presence. Zora. She appeared in his garden in a flash of light, but she wasn't alone. Floating beside her in a sphere of pure energy was a child, their child. The baby's skin shifted between human pink and luminary blue, its eyes swirling with galaxies. John, Zora's voice carried years of emotion. Meet Aurora, named for the lights of both our worlds. But as John stepped forward to embrace them, Aurora did something unexpected. The baby laughed, and in that moment, every crystal flower on Earth resonated. From space, astronauts would later report seeing the entire planet pulse with blue light. She's more powerful than we imagined, Zora explained, her silver eyes wide with wonder and concern. The mixing of our blood created something beyond either species. She exists in all dimensions at once. As if to demonstrate, Aurora waved her tiny hand, and reality rippled. For a brief moment, John could see through his daughter's eyes. The universe not as 3 dimensions, but as an infinite web of connections. Time, space, energy, and matter were all one thing, and their daughter could weave them like threads. The ancient forces are awakening, Zora said urgently. They sense her presence. Some want to protect her, others. She didn't need to finish. The crystal flowers were already showing visions of massive entities stirring in deep space, elder beings older than stars. Suddenly, Aurora reached out and touched one of the crystal flowers. The plant instantly transformed into a new form, a living computer made of light and biology. Images flashed across its surface. Earth's past, humanity's future, and something else. A warning. The Void Hunters, Zora whispered in fear. They're coming. They feed on new forms of life, on evolution itself. They've sensed Aurora's power. The crystal computer showed them. Massive dark ships, moving between galaxies, consuming worlds where life dared to evolve beyond its boundaries. They were ancient, patient, and unstoppable. Until now. But we have something they've never faced, John said, looking at his daughter with new understanding. A bridge between all forms of life. A key to unlock the universe itself. Aurora giggled again, and this time, every crystal flower on Earth bloomed with new knowledge. The collected wisdom of 1,000 dying species the luminary had encountered in their travels. Each had faced the Void Hunters. Each had fallen. But each had left behind a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of the solution. And now, in this garden where human and luminary blood had first mixed, where a child of 2 worlds played with the fabric of reality itself, something new was beginning. The crystal flowers sang their strange melody to the stars, calling out to all life in the galaxy. The time of isolation was over. The real evolution was about to begin. Above them, the living city pulsed with power, preparing for what was coming. Below, Earth's crystal network hummed in harmony with luminary technology, and in the space between, a baby girl laughed at the universe's greatest monsters, unaware that she was about to change everything. The war for evolution itself was about to begin. The Void Hunters arrived sooner than anyone expected. Their ships looked like tears in reality itself, holes in space where stars simply ceased to exist. As they approached Earth, all electronic devices failed, but the crystal network remained alive, glowing brighter than ever. Aurora, floating in her energy sphere, reached toward the dark ships. Through her eyes, John and Zara saw the truth that had been hidden for billions of years. They're not hunters. Aurora spoke her first words, her voice carrying the wisdom of ages. They're running. The crystal computer burst into life, showing images that stunned both humans and luminary. The Void Hunters were the last survivors of the universe that existed before this one. They hadn't been destroying evolved life. They'd been testing it, searching for species strong enough to help them fight something far worse. Behind their ships, something massive was emerging from deep space. It made the Void Hunter ships look tiny in comparison. It was the anti-life, a force that had destroyed their universe and was now consuming this one, galaxy by galaxy. "That's why my people were dying," Zora gasped, understanding at last. The anti-life was draining all energy from our star, from our very bodies. Aurora laughed, but this time it wasn't the laugh of a child. The sound carried power that made reality itself vibrate. The crystal flowers responded, transforming into new forms, living weapons of light and life. "Look," John pointed at his daughter in awe. Where Aurora's human and luminary blood mixed in her veins, new patterns were forming. She wasn't just a bridge between species. She was evolution itself given consciousness. The Void Hunter ships landed, and for the first time in history, their true forms were revealed. They stepped out as beings of pure darkness. But not evil darkness. They were made of the building blocks of creation itself, the void from which all life springs. Their leader approached Aurora, bowing before the child. "We have searched 1,000,000 worlds." It spoke in a voice like the space between stars. "We have tested countless species, hoping to find the one thing that could stop the anti-life. Perfect balance between order and chaos, between energy and matter, between being and non-being." Aurora reached out and touched the void being's face. Where they connected, something miraculous happened. The darkness and light didn't fight. They danced, creating patterns of such complexity that they couldn't be seen, only felt. "My blood," John realized, "carries Earth's chaotic evolution. And mine," Zara added, "carries the perfect order of pure energy. Together in her," the void being said, "they create the one thing the anti-life cannot consume. Infinite possibility." But the reunion was cut short. The anti-life had arrived, its presence so massive it blotted out the sun. It began to feed, pulling energy from everything. The earth, the sun, the luminary city. Yet wherever its darkness touched the crystal network, the flowers didn't die. Instead, they transformed the destructive energy, using it to grow stronger. This was Aurora's gift. The ability to turn death into life, entropy into evolution. The void beings raised their hands, channeling their dark energy through the crystal network. The luminary added their light. Humans across the world, connected by the crystal flowers, contributed their chaotic creativity. And at the center of it all, a small child laughed as she rewrote the laws of reality. Aurora began to glow with a light that was also darkness, a power that was neither order nor chaos, but something entirely new. She raised her tiny hands to the sky, and every crystal on Earth responded. The final battle for existence itself was about to begin. But this time, life had a secret weapon, a child born of blood from 3 different forms of life, carrying within her the power to not just fight entropy, but to transform it. The truth had been revealed. Now it was time to use it. The battle began not with violence, but with a song. Aurora's laugh became a melody that the crystal network amplified across the planet. Each note carried the frequency of life itself, Earth's chaos, luminary order, and the void being's primordial potential, all in perfect harmony. The anti-life responded by consuming entire continents of energy at once. Cities went dark. The sun dimmed. Even the luminary city began to fade. But where darkness fell, the crystal flowers bloomed brighter, feeding on the very force meant to destroy them. Now, Aurora's voice rang out with power beyond her years. Everyone together. John felt his transformed blood resonating with the crystal network. Zara's energy merged with his, their combined power flowing into their daughter. The void beings added their ancient darkness, and the luminary their eternal light. Across Earth, millions of humans connected through the crystal flowers joined their creative chaos to the mix. Aurora began to change. Her form grew until she was a being of pure possibility, neither human nor luminary nor void, but something that had never existed before, a bridge between all forms of existence. Through her, the crystal network evolved into a new form of universal consciousness. The anti-life struck directly at Aurora, trying to consume her infinite potential. But where its entropy met her evolution, something unexpected happened. Instead of destruction, there was transformation. "You've been looking at it wrong." Aurora spoke to the anti-life itself. "You're not death. You're the space where new things can grow." She reached into the heart of the destroying force and did something unprecedented. She offered it a choice. Through her merged blood, she showed it a new way to exist, not as a force of ending, but as the fertile void from which new universes could spring. The anti-life hesitated. For the first time in billions of years, it encountered something it couldn't simply consume. In that moment of hesitation, Aurora acted. She began to sing again, but this time her song carried the seeds of entire universes. The crystal flowers evolved into cosmic bridges, connecting not just species or planets, but different dimensions of reality. The anti-life found itself transformed, its entropy becoming the raw material of infinite new possibilities. Earth changed too. The crystal network didn't just cover the planet anymore. It had become part of a living universe-wide web of consciousness. Every species connected to it could share knowledge, energy, and evolution itself. John and Zara watched in awe as their daughter reshaped reality. The void beings bowed before her, not as servants, but as partners in a new form of existence. The luminary's living city merged with Earth's crystal network, creating the first of many bridges between all forms of life. Aurora returned to her child form, but now she glowed with the light of infinite possibilities. "This was always the true purpose of evolution," she said, taking both her parents' hands. "Not to fight entropy, but to transform it. Not to end death, but to make it part of a greater cycle of creation." The universe itself seemed to sigh with relief as a new balance was struck. The anti-life, now transformed, spread across space not as a destroyer, but as a gardener, preparing the void for new forms of life to evolve. Years later, Earth had become the center of a vast network of evolved species. The crystal gardens served as universities where beings from across the cosmos came to learn the art of infinite transformation. Humans began their own evolution, guided by the wisdom of all species, but free to chart their own chaotic, creative path. John and Zara watched their daughter teaching young void beings how to dance with light, while luminary children learned to play in physical forms. The barriers between species had dissolved, replaced by an endless celebration of diversity and possibility. "Was this what you imagined?" John asked Zara, "when you crashed in my forest that night?" Zara smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the light of a trillion evolved stars. "Sometimes the best futures are the ones we couldn't imagine." Above them, Aurora's laugh echoed across dimensions, seeding new universes with the joy of infinite possibility. The story of two species and a blood transfusion had become the story of existence itself, eternally evolving, eternally new. It wasn't an ending. It was an eternal beginning.